Hello, welcome to Mental Health Mondays with Dr. David Morgan. So glad to be here. I say that every time, but I really, really am. I'm glad for this opportunity, glad for to be here and respond to your questions. Got a great question today, and really thankful to Onward Productions for providing this. They're so great, and I really, really appreciate them. One of my viewers this last week said she wrote in with a question, and she said, "I don't know if this is a mental health question, but I'm going to write it anyway, and I hope to answer that one next week." So just for your information, any question you have is fine. Her question was regarding relationships. I think that's mental health related. When you talk about mental health questions, I don't think you just have to be talking about anxiety or depression or something like that. It could be coping, it could be relationships, it could be self-esteem, anything like that, anything that relates to how we kind of get along on a daily basis. So if you have any sort of question that way, whether it relates to the gospel or not is fine. That's how you can find me, onward.mental.health.mondays@gmail.com. And you can send your question there. I probably will use the gospel to answer the question just because that's what I do. I think there's just awesome opportunities to understand mental health issues through a gospel lens. So let's get to today's question. And this reader says, so just a little bit of background. The reader is detoxing off of a chemical. And it's something that's prescribed, but it's something that they need to get off of. And it's just a difficult process. If you've ever had to come down off of a prescribed or non-prescribed substance, it can be very, very difficult. And the reader says, when someone deals with chemical imbalances from withdrawals from a drug, what coping skills have you learned or taught for someone to maintain the hope and faith and courage to hold on to this commitment and the spiritual experiences they've already had? So first, just thank you so much to the viewer for writing about this. It takes a lot of courage to come out and ask for help. And quite frankly, that's the first step, and sometimes even the biggest step, just acknowledging that you need some assistance and that you could benefit from some help. So thank you. And thanks to everyone who reaches out, whether to me or to someone else. If you need help, go find it. That's the first and most important thing to do. So just to make the question a little more generic, just for anyone who might be watching, it's just kind of a question of, okay, I have a problem. I've made some efforts, maybe through spiritual or secular means, but now I'm afraid of backsliding. How do I hold on to those gains that I've had? And the viewer continued her question. She says, what if I can't cope? Does it get better? Can I survive this? How do I not give up on my faith in God and Christ, whom both have become a lifeline and anchor to all my growth? I love that. And I think that's a very, very common question that most people have. They say, well, is this going to get better? Can I cope? So let's talk about it, these questions. First thing that you need to realize is that the process of change is very long and is very inconsistent. It goes up and down. What you want is kind of sustained positive change over time. Like if you looked back at the last year or 5 years, you could see kind of a constant upward. I see if I can do this on the camera, a constant upward slant, starting here and then gradually getting better. Now, it's kind of like the stock market. If you're at all familiar with the way the stock market works in the United States, if you were to look at the stock market over the last 100 years, it would go like this. It would have this constant upward thing. But if you look at it day to day, it goes like this. Within that gradual upward progression are extreme variations, and sometimes even extended periods of time where it's been down for quite a bit of time. But overall, it's positive. Overall, there has been growth. And that's the way that change happens in our lives. If you look back at where you were 5 years ago, hopefully you are a different and better person now than you were then. If you look back at 5 days ago, you might be in a portion of backslide right now. And so you might say, well, I'm not as good right now as I was 5 days ago. That's okay. We're not looking for that moment to moment change and improvement. We're looking for that improvement over time. So the question that the reader asked is actually addressed in the Book of Mormon, Alma chapter 5. This is Alma the Younger as he's talking to the saints in Zarahemla. And these are people that had made some progress and started to backslide. So what he says in verses 14 and 26 of Alma chapter 5, "And now behold, I ask of you, my brethren of the church, have you spiritually been born of God? Have you received his image in your countenances? Have you experienced this mighty change in your hearts? And now behold, I say unto you, my brethren, if you have experienced a change of heart, and if you have felt to sing the song of redeeming love, I would ask, can ye feel so now?" So what Alma is saying is that that first step is kind of spiritually being born of God. It's making that first step in change. So in a mental health context, it'd be, okay, I'm going to counseling, or I'm going to get on medication. I'm going to talk with someone about this. It's my first step in change. Then Alma says, after that, he says, can you still feel that? Can you still feel that initial spark? And he devotes the rest of the chapter to things that we can do in order to kind of maintain that spark. Now, I am going to do a little bit of shameless self-promotion here. I did write a book about this very topic. Let's see here. It's called Can You Feel So Now? Simple Strategies to Sustain Spiritual Strength. And it addresses the principles in chapter 5 of Alma about how we can maintain that spiritual strength over time. So if you're interested in that, that's on my website. But let's talk about two principles from Alma chapter 5 that kind of relate to this idea of how we can maintain and keep going, like the viewer asked. The two things are the exercise of our faith, and then what Alma calls the eye of faith. So let's talk about the exercise of faith first. Exercise of faith is just like exercise of muscles. It takes effort, and it's difficult. When you go out and exercise, if you exercise diligently, you're going to be sore afterwards. And that soreness is actually your muscles breaking down because you pushed them beyond their limits, and then they rebuild themselves, and they rebuild themselves stronger. That's why muscles get larger over time. When you, if you exercise, if you lift weights or something like that, you're going to notice like an increase in your bicep or in your quadriceps or something, because those muscles are actually rebuilding stronger. But they can't rebuild stronger unless they've gone through some sort of strain or trauma. Faith is the same way. Your faith has to be tested in order for it to increase. If every day is just totally fine, no problems, no challenges to your beliefs, no challenges to your faith, then your faith, it'll be fine, but it won't grow. It's just going to stay stagnant. There has to be challenges. And so when you are trying to move forward and you encounter some sort of roadblock, that's kind of the Lord's way of saying, hey, here's an opportunity for you to grow. Here's an opportunity for you to exercise your faith so that it can be stronger. So how do you exercise your faith? Well, number one is make sure you are attending to all of your regular spiritual practices, studying your scriptures, praying diligently. If you can attend church during COVID, then go to church. Once the temples reopen, then go to the temple. Those are things we can do to exercise our faith. The other thing we can do is to make sure we push during those moments of difficulty. I used to run in high school in cross country, and at the end of the race, I was exhausted, but I would sprint for that last 100 yards, and it was the last bit of energy I had. Now, everything in my body was saying, don't sprint, run over to that tree and sit down, but I only had 100 yards to go, and so I just kept going. And that's very, very common when people exercise or compete. So that's what we have to do. In those moments, in those days when our faith feels weak, that's when we push and we hold on to every last bit and exercise it. And don't worry about the backslide. It's okay. That process, like I said, is going to be a jagged process, hopefully increasing overall upwards. But those backslides are part of the plan. And Lehi taught Jacob rather, that there must be opposition in all things. And that's part of that. Okay, so second is what's called the eye of faith, and that's where we look forward with belief, where we say, I know that things are going to get better. I know that things are going to improve. They're not good right now, but I really, really believe that they're going to get better. That comes from having a solid testimony, a testimony of truth. If you don't have a solid testimony, then that's where to start. Get a strong testimony of the gospel. Once you have that strong testimony, you can lean on that. So in those moments of backslide, in those moments when your emotional stock market is down, you can say, you know what? I think this is going to get better. I have faith that this is going to get better. And that's kind of looking forward and forecasting with this eye of faith. Not the eye of fear. The eye of fear says it's going to be horrible. Things are going to be terrible. And the world's going to fall apart. We don't want the eye of fear. We want the eye of faith that says things are going to work out. And we know it's going to because of the atonement of Jesus Christ. We know things work out. He's already fixed it all. We just have to trust in him. And so we lean on him during those moments of difficulty and ask him in that last 100 yards of the race to help us, to give us extra strength, to supplement the strength that all the strength that we have. So just to summarize, I want to go back to the viewers, some of their questions, and just answer them real quickly. Question 1, what if I can't cope? You can. You can cope. Just do your best. Hold on. Give it everything you got today. Today might be a backslide. Tomorrow can be a better day. Number 2, does it get better? Yes, of course it gets better. That's the Savior's promise. Everything gets better. Number 3, can I survive this? Again, yes, of course you can survive it, but you need the Lord's help to do it. Surviving on your own, I don't know if you can do that or not. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. If you partner with the Lord, absolutely, yes, you will survive it. And the last question, how do I not give up on my faith in God and Christ? You have to dig deep at that end of the race. Give it everything you got. And say, Heavenly Father, I'm giving you all my strength and I need help to finish, and he will help you. Thanks again to everyone. What a great question. Hope you enjoyed the answer. If you have any questions for me, of course, you can always find me on my website, www.ldspsychologist.com, or on Instagram at ldspsychologist. So as always, remember that change is possible, but that change requires effort and to keep moving forward. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.